1,300 miles from the North Pole, in the northernmost permanently inhabited town on Earth, there is a rule. You are not allowed to die there. If you are terminally ill, the state will fly you south to the Norwegian mainland. If you die suddenly, your body will not be buried in the local cemetery. The cemetery stopped accepting new burials in 1950. The reason is the ground. The ground is permafrost, frozen since the last ice age, and bodies placed in it do not decompose. They are preserved. In 1998, scientists exhumed a coal miner who had died there in 1917 and recovered live samples of the 1918 Spanish flu virus from his lungs. The town learned its lesson. The town is called Longyearbyen, population 2,417, latitude 78 degrees north. It sits on an archipelago called Svalbard, 9 main islands, roughly 61,000 square kilometers of rock and glacier, halfway between mainland Norway and the geographic North Pole. There are other rules. You are not allowed to give birth here either. The hospital has no maternity ward. Pregnant women are flown south at week 38. You are required, by Norwegian law, to carry a firearm when leaving the town's settled area, because of polar bears, which outnumber humans on the archipelago by roughly 3 to 1. Roughly 1 in 3 adults owns a rifle, by statute. There are no roads connecting Longyearbyen to any other settlement. There are no native trees. The sun does not rise for 113 days a year. The sun does not set for 124. There is a vault buried inside a mountain that contains 1.3 million seed samples, humanity's backup hard drive against extinction. This is the story of the only town on Earth where the cemetery is closed, the maternity ward does not exist, and the law requires you to be armed. Svalbard sits between 74 and 81 degrees north latitude. It is the northernmost piece of land on Earth with a permanent civilian population. The North Pole itself lies 1,309 kilometers further north. There is nothing between Longyearbyen and the pole except ocean, drifting ice, and, in summer, the occasional Russian icebreaker. The archipelago was first systematically charted by the Dutch navigator Willem Barents in 1596. He named it Spitsbergen, Dutch for pointed mountains, after the jagged peaks rising from its western coast. For 3 centuries afterward, it belonged to no one. Whalers from the Netherlands, England, Denmark, and the Basque Country worked its waters. Russian pomor hunters built winter stations on its shores. The islands were a legal vacuum, terra nullius, land claimed by no state. That ended in 1920. At the Versailles Peace Conference, 9 countries signed the Svalbard Treaty. It granted sovereignty over the archipelago to Norway. It also granted every signatory state equal rights to fish, hunt, mine, and conduct commercial activity there. As of 2026, 46 countries are party to the treaty. Russian and Polish citizens can live and work on Svalbard without a Norwegian visa. So can citizens of Afghanistan, North Korea, and Saudi Arabia. The archipelago is, on paper, one of the most internationally accessible places on the planet. In practice, the cost of reaching it is the visa. The town of Longyearbyen was founded in 1906 by an American coal magnate named John Monroe Longyear of Boston. He bought the mineral rights to the central valley of Spitsbergen and established the Arctic Coal Company. Coal had been discovered there in the 1890s. The seams ran beneath the mountains in horizontal layers, some only 60 centimeters thick. Men crawled into them on their stomachs to dig. By 1916, the company had been sold to Norwegian interests. By 1925, when Norwegian sovereignty took formal effect, the town had a permanent population of around 300. They were almost all men. They were almost all miners. The town had a mess hall, a hospital, a chapel, and a cemetery. The cemetery is still there. There are around 100 wooden crosses set in rows on a slope above the fjord. None of them has been added to since 1950. The decision to close the cemetery was practical. The ground at Longyearbyen is permafrost from 30 centimeters below the surface down to a depth of around 100 meters. The active layer, the few centimeters that thaw in summer, is not deep enough to bury a coffin. Even where bodies were placed deeper, the permafrost held them. They did not break down. The freeze-thaw cycle of the soil began over decades to push the coffins back toward the surface. Polar bears, which are scavengers, learned this. In 1998, a team of researchers led by the pathologist Kirsty Duncan exhumed the body of a 21-year-old coal miner who had died in Longyearbyen in October 1918 during the second wave of the Spanish flu pandemic. His tissue had been preserved by the permafrost for 80 years. From his lungs, scientists recovered genetic fragments of the H1N1 influenza virus, the virus that killed an estimated 50 million people worldwide between 1919 and 1920. The work contributed to the eventual full sequencing of the 1918 virus, completed in 2005. The lesson of the exhumation was straightforward. The ground keeps everything: pathogens, tissue, cloth, hair. The town does not bury its dead because the ground does not let the dead become past tense. In modern Longyearbyen, a person whose health deteriorates is, with their consent, flown by ambulance plane to the University Hospital of North Norway in Tromsø, 950 kilometers south. The journey takes around 2 hours. A person who dies suddenly, in an accident, in their sleep, is also flown south for burial in their home community. The hospital in Longyearbyen has 24 beds. It is staffed for emergencies and minor procedures. It is not staffed for end-of-life care. The same logic governs birth. The hospital does not have a maternity ward, a neonatal intensive care unit, or a permanent obstetrician. Pregnant women are flown to the mainland approximately 3 weeks before their due date. Children born on Svalbard exist. They happen by accident, in transit, in storms that ground the plains. But the system is designed to prevent it. There is no birth certificate registry for Svalbard births. A child born there is registered as having been born in Tromsø, where they would have been born had the flight made it. The cemetery is closed. The hospital does not deliver. Longyearbyen is, in administrative terms, a town with no beginning and no end. The middle is the only part the state acknowledges. The third rule is the rifle. The polar bear is the apex predator of the Arctic and the largest land carnivore on Earth. An adult male can weigh 700 kilograms and run 40 kilometers per hour over short distances. It is one of the few terrestrial predators that will actively stalk a human being. The archipelago of Svalbard is home to roughly 3,000 polar bears, the Barents Sea subpopulation, which moves between the islands and the surrounding pack ice. The human population is approximately 2,900. Bears outnumber people. They are seen on average several times a year inside the town limits. They have been photographed walking past the kindergarten. In 2011, a polar bear killed a 17-year-old British camper on the eastern coast of Spitsbergen. In 2020, another killed a Dutch camper at a campsite a few hundred meters from the Longyearbyen airport. The Norwegian governor of Svalbard maintains a regulation that any person leaving the immediate settled area of the town must carry a means of frightening and, if necessary, killing a polar bear. In practice, this means a high-powered rifle. The minimum recommended caliber is .308. Flare pistols are required as a first deterrent. Tripwire perimeters of pen flares are required for any overnight camp outside town. The University Center in Svalbard, UNIS, issues firearms training to all students at the start of every semester. Tourists who hike outside the town must hire an armed guide or pass a rifle competency course themselves. By estimate, roughly 1 in 3 adult residents of Longyearbyen personally owns a rifle. Many own more than one. The rifles are stored in locked cabinets. They are carried slung over the back, muzzle down, on the snowmobile racks and outside the supermarket. There is a designated firearm check at the bank. Guns must be left at the door. The town has a kindergarten, a high school, a university with around 750 students, 2 churches, a swimming pool, a brewery, and a Thai restaurant. It also has a regulation that requires residents to take off their shoes when entering most public buildings, a tradition from the coal mining era, when boots tracked coal dust through every interior. The town does not have a road that leads anywhere else. The Norwegian mainland is 950 kilometers south, separated by open ocean. The nearest other settlement on the archipelago, Barentsburg, a Russian-administered coal mining town of around 350 people, is 55 kilometers west, reachable only by snowmobile in winter, boat in summer, or helicopter in either. There are no native trees on Svalbard. The tree line ends, latitudinally, more than 500 kilometers to the south. The tallest naturally occurring plant on the archipelago is the polar willow, which grows horizontally along the ground and reaches a maximum height of around 5 centimeters. The town is built on a tundra of moss, lichen, and shattered rock. Where trees appear, in the windows of homes, in the lobby of the Radisson, in the school, they have been imported, one at a time, by ship. The sun. Above the Arctic Circle, the sun does not behave as it does elsewhere. At the latitude of Longyearbyen, the polar night lasts from around October 25th to February 17th, 113 days, during which the sun does not rise above the horizon. For 4 weeks in the middle of this period, the darkness is total. No twilight, no dusk, no dawn. The stars are visible at noon. The aurora borealis is visible across the sky. The midnight sun lasts from around April 19th to August 23rd, 124 days during which the sun does not set. The light does not move. It only circles. At 2 a.m. in July, a person can read a book outdoors. School children wear sleep masks. The town's 2 churches hold midnight services in full daylight. Beneath all of it lies the vault. In 2008, on a mountainside 3 kilometers outside Longyearbyen, the Norwegian government opened the Svalbard Global Seed Vault. It is buried 130 meters deep into the sandstone. The entrance is a single concrete wedge protruding from the snow. Inside, in 3 chambers cooled to minus 18 degrees Celsius, are stored, as of 2026, more than 1.3 million distinct seed samples from nearly every country on Earth. The samples represent over 6,000 plant species. It is, by an enormous margin, the largest genetic backup of human agriculture ever assembled. The vault was designed to survive nuclear war, asteroid impact, and the eventual collapse of global refrigeration. The permafrost surrounding it would, in theory, keep the seeds frozen for centuries, even if the cooling systems failed. The vault has been opened only a handful of times. In 2015, researchers from the International Center for Agricultural Research in the Dry Areas, based in Aleppo, Syria, withdrew seeds for the first time to replace samples lost when their own gene bank was destroyed in the Syrian civil war. The vault is the reason most people outside Norway have heard of Svalbard. It is also the only structure in Longyearbyen designed on the assumption that civilization elsewhere might end. The other settlement on the archipelago is older and stranger. Barentsburg sits 55 kilometers west of Longyearbyen, on the shore of Granfjorden. It is a Russian coal mining town, operated by the state-owned company Arktikugol, the Arctic Coal Trust. Its population in 2026 is around 350, down from over 2,500 in the Soviet era. Most are Ukrainian and Russian miners on multi-year contracts. The town has a Soviet-era statue of Lenin, one of the world's 2 northernmost, facing the harbor. It has a Lutheran chapel, a swimming pool, a brewery that claims to be the northernmost in the world, and a billboard at the harbor that reads, in Cyrillic, "Our goal, communism." A third settlement, Pyramiden, sits another 50 kilometers to the north. It was a Soviet mining town of around 1,000 people until 1998, when it was abandoned almost overnight. The miners left their personal belongings behind. The northernmost statue of Lenin on Earth still stands in its central square. The town's piano, a grand piano shipped to the Arctic in the 1950s, still sits in the recreation hall. In 2026, Pyramiden has a permanent staff of 3, a caretaker, a hotel manager, and a guide. The polar bears come and go through the empty streets. The presence of these Russian towns on a Norwegian archipelago is not an oversight. It is the 1920 treaty. Russia, as a successor to the Soviet Union, retains the same commercial and residency rights as any other signatory. Arktikugol's coal mining at Barentsburg has, for decades, operated at a financial loss. The Russian government continues to subsidize it. The reason is widely understood. The mine is not, primarily, a mine. It is a presence. The economics of Longyearbyen itself have shifted. Norwegian coal mining on Svalbard, which sustained the town for over a century, is ending. The last Norwegian-operated mine, Mine 7, ceased commercial production in 2025. The town's economy is now built on research, education, and tourism. UNIS, the world's northernmost university, runs Arctic science programs that draw students from over 40 countries. The Seed Vault draws scientists and filmmakers. Cruise ships arrive in summer, restricted, as of 2024, by new Norwegian regulations that limit vessel size and passenger numbers in most of the archipelago's protected areas. The protected areas are vast. 65% of Svalbard is designated as National Park or Nature Reserve. The archipelago contains 7 national parks, 23 nature reserves, and one of the largest contiguous wilderness areas in Europe. The glaciers cover roughly 57% of the land area. They are retreating. The town of Longyearbyen has, in the past decade, experienced warming at roughly 6 times the global average rate, among the fastest measured anywhere on Earth. The permafrost beneath the town is thawing. In 2017, an apartment building had to be evacuated and demolished after the ground beneath it lost structural integrity. The closed cemetery has begun, in places, to slump. New construction in Longyearbyen, as of 2026, is built on steel pilings driven deep into the underlying bedrock, bypassing the permafrost entirely. The town that was designed to be frozen forever is having to learn how to stand on ground that moves. In 2015, a snowslide on the mountain above Longyearbyen, called Sukkertoppen, destroyed 11 homes and killed 2 people. A second slide in 2017 destroyed 2 more buildings. The Norwegian government has since condemned and demolished 144 housing units in the avalanche zone beneath the mountain. Roughly a tenth of the town's housing has been removed. Steel snow barriers, 3 meters high, now run for over a kilometer along the slope. The town is being rebuilt away from the mountain. The new housing is being built on the opposite side of the valley. The old housing, where the miners lived for a century, is gone. There are now more dogs in Longyearbyen than children. There are more snowmobiles than cars, by some counts 3 times as many. There is a Thai community of around 100, drawn by service jobs and the tax-free retail status of the archipelago. The supermarket sells fresh mangoes, flown in twice a week. A bottle of wine costs roughly half what it does in Oslo. There is no sales tax on Svalbard. There is no VAT. There is also no welfare state. If a resident loses their job and cannot pay rent, they are expected to leave. The Norwegian government does not, as a matter of policy, support unemployed residents of Svalbard. The archipelago is a place to work, study, or pass through. It is not a place to remain when one cannot. Around 2,900 people live there in 2026. They speak 53 languages. They will, in time, all leave. The ones who stay long enough to grow old will leave for hospitals on the mainland. The ones who arrive pregnant will leave for the maternity wards in Tromsø. The dead will not stay either. What remains, on a mountainside above the fjord, is the cemetery that has not added a name since 1950. 100 wooden crosses, the names painted in white. The wind off the Arctic Ocean has stripped most of them clean. And below the crosses, in the same permafrost, in a vault carved 130 meters into the rock, 1.3 million seeds wait in the dark. They are the world's plan for what to do if everything south of here ends. The town with no births and no burials sits between them. A place humans pass through. A place humans do not, by design, complete a life inside. This is what the northernmost town on Earth has become. Not a home, a station. a place from which to watch the ice retreat and the bears come closer, and the ground, 8 centuries of it, slowly remember how to move.